Okay, so you guys can see my screen now. So this is what I was referring to. So I said that the first part is just about objects in JavaScript, which we've gone through. Then the second part is about the DOM in JavaScript, which we've also gone over, but I just want us to go over it again because it is like the last part before we transition into front end or back end. So, and like I was saying, just like everything we do in programming, we need to take it line by line. So you start from the first line and you try to understand what each line is doing before moving on to the next. So similarly, if you have a task as well, you just have to take it line by line. So the first line here says we should create an HTML file named index.js. So that is like everybody here should be able to do that without any problem. Um, so let's see. Let's see. Let me delete what I have here. Okay. So the first step says we should create an index.html file. So that is done. Now the second step is inside the HTML file, we should use the script tag to link an external JavaScript file. So what we need to do here, so before we can link a script tag, we need to have our body or our heading. So what I'll simply do is I would create my HTML boilerplate by typing HTML colon 5, then I'll press tab. So now we have a body where we can keep the script tag, and this is my script tag. Now it says I should link this script tag to an external JavaScript file. So I would add my source and say index.js. Now I would need to create that file in my solution explorer. So just like that, we have taken care of step 1 and step 2. Now the next part here says we should enhance the person object by adding additional properties such as email, phone, and interests. Then we should implement methods for updating and displaying the additional properties. So this here is referring to what we have done for the object task. So to do that, we will write this in my JavaScript file. So the first thing we need to do is create an object. So name, age, city, name, then age, age, then city. So the reason why we are creating an object is because we want to solve this task, which says we should enhance the person object. So we need to have the person object before we can enhance it by adding these properties. So once I have this now, I can enhance the object by saying person.email is equal to example example.com. So now if I log my person object to my console by saying console.log person, and I run this using node index.js. So we can see my object here now contains the property email, which is example.com. So just like I've done for email, I will do for phone and interests. So I will do person.phone. So this will add the phone property to the person object. So my phone can just be something like this. Or um, let's say plus 2, 3, 4. Okay. Then my interests. So because that is plural, we can make it an array. So we can make it an array of interests. Please, at any point, if you have any question, you can just speak up before we move on. So when I run index node.js, we can see that the person object now contains all of the properties that were added after creating the person. So just like that, we are done with this next part, which says we should enhance the person object by adding these additional properties. Now, it says we should implement methods for updating and displaying the additional properties. So, and just like we know, a method is going to be a function. So I can create my method here, or I can decide to create it outside as well. So I would say function display, and this will take in a person. Then I can decide to just log that person. So now to execute this function, I'll call the function name, which is display, and I'll pass in the person that I've created as my parameter value. So when I run my program again, you can see that it is displaying the object that we have. Now, to update this object, I can decide to add an optional another parameter rather. So let's say this function is to update. So this function is going to take in an object, then the property we want to update. So we can say object and the update property. So the property we are going to be passing in here is the property we want to update. So what I would do in my function is I would say object dot update property is equal to property value. So this is going to be my third parameter that I'll pass to my update function. So which will be the value of the property I'm updating. Now, let's say I want to update my person object and I want to update the person's email. So let's say I want to update this email with something else. Now let's see what happens when I run this. It says email is not defined. That's because of this. So let me try to use this other convention. Okay, I think this should work now. So let me go back and run this. Saying email is not defined. So let me make my email a string. So now that we are no longer getting any errors, let me clear the terminal. So to see the object, let me just do a console.log and I'll pass in my object. So when I run this using node index.js, we can see that the email has changed from example to example2 using this update function. So my update function here is taking in three parameters because I would need the object I want to update, then the particular property I want to update, then the value I want to update that property with. So that's why I have three parameters here. Then the action I'm performing is simply reassigning the property value to my property for that particular object. So that is why we have three parameters there. Yeah, so if you joined this from the beginning, this is like a recap of last session actually. So this was the exercise we took at the end where we looked at objects and functions to modify objects and how to add parameters to objects after creating the object. So this is like a recap session. We have not gone into the task for today. So the task for today is going to be manipulating the DOM using JavaScript, which we would be moving on to now. So just like that, we have finished four tasks and we can move on to creating a simple HTML form in my index.js file to allow users to update the person's object's properties. So now the next step is to create a simple HTML form. So I would go into my index file, then I would say form, and inside my form I would have my inputs. Um, so the type is going to be text here. Then the placeholder, let's say, is going to be name. So the next one would be text as well, and let's say the placeholder is going to be email. Then finally we can also change the city or whatever. We can even decide to change all the properties, but let's just work with these three for now. So after having all of your inputs, then I would need a button to submit this form. So I would create a button of type submit. So this is going to be a submit button. Then I would say the button is going to update my object. So let me run this so we can see what we have. So I would run this using start index.html. So this will open up the form in my browser.